Chief of Staff, Army G8, Lieutenant General Robert P. Lennox. Please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of the national anthem, followed by the invocation, which will be delivered by Chaplain Kenneth Robert Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Robert Lennox.
Well, I'm going to tell everybody why I'm nervous up front. Colonel and Mrs. Vinnie Tedesco, will you stand for a minute, sir or ma'am? The Tedescos are heroes of air defense artillery. And back when we had young junior lieutenants going through the basic course, we had certain role models that energized us, that set the example for us in the branch. And sir, I'm so glad you're with us today and honoring the service of your son. But this is why I'm nervous. So I'm graded by centuries. Colonel Tedesco was successful. We talked about this earlier. One of his two sons went to air defense artillery, unlike mine. So he was a much better leader in his family than I am. And then we're here today with the one who did. I think you've had to do this your whole career, haven't you? So okay. Well, let me thank Tony Kuklo for coming. For those of you that don't know, he's freed himself up of the drudgery of being division commander of the 3rd Infantry Division, and decided to join us here in the G8 to take over the FD. When I think one of the toughest and most important jobs that someone can do in the United States Army, equipping our soldiers for today's fight and for tomorrow. And Tony, thanks for coming, and thanks for your leadership and what you bring to the G8 team. Whole group of G8 leaders and folks in the DOI that do this for a living is worth the effort here to honor BJ, and thanks so much for all the who's equipping the Army while you guys are here and what's going on back there without your supervision. Historic day. I think you've been at this military stuff for 25 years of active service. I think, Chaplain, you said, first of all, thank you very much for doing that. But also counter ROTC in front of that. You've been kind of doing this your whole life.
Yes, sir.
Now you're going to have to figure out what color socks to match, tie, pants, all that other stuff. And for someone who was born in Fort Benning, Georgia, and has lived kind of a military life his whole life, this is going to be a dramatic change. And any time during the course of me talking, you change your mind and want to stay, it's okay by me, BJ. We'll just walk out and go right back to work.
I'll wait for the sign.
Hard audience. Well, I mentioned BJ got his start at Fort Benning, Georgia, but after he really had no choice in what college he went to. When I started pulling the string of why Rachel, Leanne and Rachel here, by the way, why Rachel is at Penn State today, going to be a new sophomore, and it's because she had no choice. Her mom and dad went to Penn State, and BJ's mom and dad went to Penn State, and I think it probably probably goes back for several more generations.
Italy.
And stay east in Italy. So, and by happenstance, that's where you and Leanne met. And I thought the story was great. Somewhere on a one-rope bridge that you were supervising. Rumors are you put the knot in the middle of it so that she'd struggle on purpose and cause you to have to intervene and help out, and the rest is history. And I think that's a great story. Leanne, thanks for your service as an Army nurse, and then continued service we'll talk about to soldiers and families throughout a career in the military. But starting way back when, you guys started as an Army team and it just kept going that whole time. Well, after commissioning, and we already regret his choice of branches as an army officer, but he made the best of it, and ended up in Fulda, Germany, which I think in 1987,
87 is when we were.
by the time you get there, you can think of what's going on in Fulda, Germany at that time. You're still looking across at the Soviets, and that's where you get a master's degree in being an armored cavalry leader in the 11th ACR at the time, 1st Squadron. When you show up and you're asked to be a tank platoon leader and a scout platoon leader and do some of the other jobs and missions. Ended up on the Squadron S3 staff, XO and the Squadron S3 staff. You learn your profession that way. You become a master of it. They studied the ins and outs of how to defend Western Germany from the Soviets. You really learn your profession. To help BJ learn the profession, Leanne got assigned apart from him in Frankfurt, so he could devote all of his free time and focus on success. You know what? You can imagine what life was like in Fulda for a young officer, and how much time you're in the field, how much time you're focusing on your, what do they call the mission at the time?
GDP, sir.
GDP. You had to go out for your GDP position and know it blindfolded, back and forth, and you had to disguise it so that nobody else knew where it was. You had to do a lot of other work at the time. And if your spouse is in Frankfurt, miles away, and working shift, you can imagine that you don't get to see her very much. And it's a start of the life of sacrifice that you guys have led. But I think a great start for a young officer in simply mastering profession. So you had to move the world, and there's a great story behind this that you all shared with me. And it was funny how I heard this. Somebody would start a sentence and somebody else would finish it, and then someone else would start the next sentence. But it came to do with Rachel being born, and I won't share that with everybody. But you can imagine how hard it is now to get PJ out of Europe to the Armor Advanced course. And then Leanne was still over there in Europe as a nurse, and all of a sudden Desert Storm breaks out. So now she's there. He's showing up at Fort Riley to deploy, and it's one of those stop and goes. I think you got to draw your gear actually before you deployed, but it was a pretty close call from the stories. And get on the plane and head right to Saudi Arabia to join the 1st Armored Division and to join the CAV Squadron. First Infantry Division, I'm sorry. And to 1st to the 4th CAV in the 1st Infantry Division. And to be the S3 Air at the time. So you're employed doing this, and Leanne can't get out of Europe, and you guys go ahead and win the fight in pretty quick order. And after 4 or 5 months, get home, but then also to have her meet them at Fort Riley, and at the end of the story, Rachel is born. So it all works out. And I'll kind of smooth over the details. Ask BJ about it afterwards. And afterward, you then got to command B Troop, or 1st to the 4th Cav.
Yes, sir.
And obviously did a superb job on that. Handpicked to go teach at West Point. And you went to graduate school at?
Penn State, sir.
Pennsylvania. Storyline here. To broaden your horizons.
More than first background.
But then to go teach at West Point, which is a phenomenal thing. When I was teaching in economics, we would follow the history instructors over to the gym at lunchtime. And there was a guy named Dan Bolger who's turned out pretty well in his own career. But I'd follow Dan Bolger over to the gym, and they'd be talking about their lessons, or they'd be preparing for the next lesson, just talking about life. And the interesting part for you was, it's kind of like an officer professional development on the course to go and work out, just listening to you guys that have this kind of background and expertise in military history talk. And you got to teach one of my favorite courses, military art, and that one to me is kind of it's the pinnacle of education for a cadet. You do a lot of military science, you do a lot of required history, but military art is about what we're doing. And you get to study the battles and the tacticians and the strategists of history, the great captains, and have that kind of conversation with junior and senior cadets. I was teaching economics to sophomores. They weren't awake, Rachel. You're probably better at this, Penn State, but my cadets weren't awake when I was teaching economics, and I'm sure it was their fault. Yes, of course. But in art, they would stay awake, and that's kind of neat, and what a neat opportunity for you all. From there to Command General Staff College,
Yes, sir.
and selection to the SAMS course. And VJ and I were talking on the way down. I think this is really the pinnacle of Army education. And my feelings are this ought to be the course that every Army officer takes, not just the best and the brightest, but everyone takes, because you really think, study, read, write about your profession. But in VJ's case, you could tell that we were hand-picking the best folks to go on for this and investing this kind of education in them. And then we make them pay for it by giving them plans work for the entire rest of their career. And if you look at it, occasionally we interspersed and allowed you to do a few other things, but you were kind of stuck in that for the rest.
Yes, sir.
Starting with
on giving.
starting with going to Fort Hood and being in the G3 staff as a planner. And then you got a little reprieve. You got to be a S3, an XO, a battalion, and a brigade XO, doing some neat stuff. And as a result of all that great time with soldiers, we, I guess, decided to give you this hole-in-the-wall job at a place that's never been busy in the last 30 or 40 years. And we sent the 3rd Army in 2003 to be a planner, to be the war planner. War plans in 2003. Well, the rest of you know what 3rd Army was doing in about 2003. And from 2003 to 2005, you know that VJ was up to here with war plans, operations, constant deployments back and forth to theater, immersed in ongoing operations in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and the crazy complex things that 3rd Army had to do. 3rd Army really had the bulk of all the fighting to get to Baghdad, and then afterward you transitioned to some of the other headquarters in Iraq and Afghanistan. But you know that 3rd Army has been the center of the universe for the United States Army, really for the last 7 or 8 years. Yeah, absolutely. So immersed in doing that. So this reprieve in Atlanta that the family got to enjoy didn't quite work out that way for you. I know that wasn't the plan to begin with, but it was a good story. From there, battalion command. And DJ got to take command in the 1st Armored Division, but his battalion was deployed. And being a military historian, you would think that you'd study counterinsurgency history. You know that it's about winning over the people and bringing them onto your side. So it's all about the people-focused kind of strategy. And what was the nickname of your battalion?
The Bandits.
The Bandits. So you show up in Anbar Province with a name like the Bandits to really establish a relationship.
We weren't into making friends.
No, well, and that really is the point. It wasn't a very friendly time when we asked you to go there. 2005, 2006?
2006, 2007.
Yeah, some of the worst time in Anbar Province, and the roles and missions and things that we asked you to do at that time were not necessarily people-friendly kinds of things, and you guys did an amazing job, amazing service. As a result of that, VJ got rewarded with a trip back to Forces Command this time as Chief Planner, and I really got to know him on Saturday morning civets. When I was a Deputy G3, we sat here in the Pentagon with civets, and there's this one guy that Jay Yingling and a couple other friends would get on there and set the stage and talk about something, but they'd always turn to one guy to carry the day. And then when the problems got tough, when we wanted a agribusiness team, and you could hear in VJ's voice that we don't have any agribusiness teams in Forces Command. That's just one example. You want something else, and we don't have any of those. I'll give you an infantry unit. But having to make things in this boutique and designer war into real Army units that we have in our inventory to train them up and deploy them. VJ did an excellent job, and he showed his patience with us, He showed his tact most times, and telling us what it's really like on the ground in the rest of the Army. And it was a good reminder for those of us here in the Pentagon that kind of forgot that. So as a reward for your time and your hard work and pain and suffering down there, we brought you to the G8. No good deed goes unpunished, does it? And here we put you in one of our tougher jobs. And you got to work with our great team, doing the kind of work that I think we take pride in every day, which is equipping soldiers and making a difference in units' lives. Taking the challenges that are enormously hard for a battalion commander like you were, and trying to make them a little bit easier by getting them the equipment that they need to be successful in their missions and successful when they deploy. And you've got a great team of folks that work with you here in the Pentagon and then throughout the Army, and you've done an amazing job. So I think a great way to end a superb career that started in Fulda, Germany, and lasted to today. Couldn't have done it without a great team. And Leanne, my thanks to you for your service, your selflessness. A lot of those years when you have that Sam's Planner behind your name mean you're going to be handpicked, pulled out, and deployed, and be away from home. And the hours are awfully long. I don't know any planner that A, doesn't have gray hair, and that B, doesn't have 20-hour days when the going gets tough. They're the go-to guys, and BJ did that, and it couldn't have done it without your help and support. So I'm proud and honored to be here with you today and to recognize your service, to thank you for everything that you've done and that you've done as a family, and give you one more chance if you want to stay. Go ahead. No, I'm not kidding. In that case, why don't we go ahead and touch.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated throughout the presentations. The United States of America, to all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that the President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress 20 July 1942, has awarded the Legion of Merit to Colonel Vincent J. Tedesco, United States Army, for exceptionally meritorious service, culminating as G8's Chief of the Unit Readiness and Equipping Division. While serving as G8 Division Chief, Colonel Tedesco masterfully managed the equipping of resetting Army units and ensured our soldiers and units had the right equipment at the right time for training and deployment. His expertise and dedication as the FORSCOM G357 Chief of Plans resulted in providing the forces for Operation New Dawn and Operation Enduring Freedom, including the forces for the Afghanistan surge and other priority requirements. As the commander of the Combined Heavy Task Force, he led his soldiers, Marines, airmen, and sailors in securing the Al-Qaeda stronghold in Ramadi, Iraq. Colonel Tedesco's substantial accomplishments reflect great credit upon himself, the Office of the Deputy Chief of Staff G8, and the United States Army. By order of the Secretary of the Army, this 20th day of July, 2011. Hold on. A certificate of appreciation from the Commander-in-Chief is presented to Colonel Vincent J. Tedesco III. The certificate reads, I extend to you my personal thanks and the sincere appreciation of a grateful nation for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of military service. Your commitment and dedication have been an inspiration for those who will follow in your footsteps and for all Americans who join me today in saluting you for a job extremely well done. My best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future. Signed, Barack Obama, Commander-in-Chief. A certificate of retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America reads, to all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that Vincent J. Tedesco III, Colonel, Armor, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Army on the 30th day of November 2011. Signed, George W. Casey, Chief of Staff, Army.
Oh, you got an antique version.
I did. That's it.
I think it still counts.
It's a 10.
Tedesco, will you please join your husband for the next presentation? A certificate of appreciation from the Department of the Army reads, "To all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that Mrs. Leanne Roberts Tedesco, on the occasion of the retirement of her husband from active status with the United States Army, has earned grateful appreciation for her own unselfish, faithful, and devoted service. Her unfailing support and understanding helped to make possible her husband's lasting contribution to the nation." Signed, General George W. Casey, Chief of Staff, Army.
Leanne, thanks for everything. And I know this is a small thank you from a very grateful Army for your personal sacrifice that made this such a successful team sport. So thank you very much. Turn over. I think Sean's coming up. Where'd you guys?
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Dr. Sean Hickey, the Deputy Division Chief of the Unit Equipping and Readiness Division, who will present a gift to Colonel Tedesco on behalf of the division.
We all know Colonel Tedesco has served this country, both in the field and here in the Pentagon, with great honor and distinction. The FDU team, his team, would like to present him with a flag that has been flown over the Pentagon as a symbol of our gratitude and all of his service. Sure, as Yogi said, it's not over too. Okay, I won't finish that one. Now, you know, Colonel B.J. Tedesco is a football fan. And his professional, unfortunately, he couldn't choose a professional football team that needed some support, like the Washington Redskins, even the Dallas Cowboys. He kind of stayed loyal to his Pittsburgh roots, and Pennsylvania roots, that is, and he is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Oh, too bad.
You know, Steelers take care of Steelers. And Coach Mike Tomlin of Pittsburgh Steelers sent this letter of appreciation to Colonel Tedesco for his service. Sir.
Well, if I'm giving this one back.
You know, his professional football team choice. You know, he has a college team he supports. And if you ask the name of that team, he'd look at you as if you're crazy because he'd say Penn State, dummy. And if you cut him, he would bleed. Penn State, Nittany Lion, blue and white. Well, Coach Joe Paterno, the Coach Joe Paterno, sent this letter to our Colonel Tedesco to thank him for his service. And if I could read just one piece of it. On behalf of the Pennsylvania State University, let me first thank you for your exemplary service to our country and congratulate you on your service with the United States Army. I wish you and your family all the best. That's just a piece of it. BJ, from Coach Joe. You know, sir, you're now head of FD. And the FD, Spartans are known for their total commitment to being soldiers. The FD, G8 FD, are known as the Spartans because of their total commitment to supporting the soldier. On a daily basis, Colonel Tedesco exemplified that. And his team, his FDU team, would like to present him with a model of a Spartan helmet.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present Colonel Vincent J. Tedesco III.
Keeping of the customs of my privilege, I'm going to put on my Stetson for the remarks. It's a perpetual feature of any remarks I give is the readjustment of the microphone.
iPad?
And I tell you what, I'm usually someone who's pretty quick to be able to speak extemporaneously, but on the occasion of something like this, I took the time to write out my remarks, which frankly, the only other times I've done that is for memorial ceremonies, because I knew emotionally I needed the crutch of having a written document to refer to. It's analogous to the situation we're in today. Lieutenant General Lennox, Major General Cucolo, fellow colonels, distinguished guests, co-workers, friends, and family. I'd like to begin by thanking General Lennox for his exceptionally kind words this morning. Sir, I sincerely appreciate you hosting this ceremony. It means a lot to my family as a whole, and we appreciate your willingness to honor this. And I'm humbled that you get to send you off today, sir. I'd like to also thank you for saving me from the G3 tractor beam that was pulling me in as I contemplated my assignment to the Pentagon. And through your benevolence, I was able to spend my final year in the Army learning something new and learning skills that I hopefully can continue to put to work for the benefit of soldiers and the defense of our nation. I'd also like to thank my coworkers and friends and family for taking time from their busy schedules today to spend this afternoon watching a slightly used up colonel struggle through his last official act as a soldier. I was born into the Army. I've given it 25 years, and I will die in the warm embrace of the Army as a proud retiree. Thank you for joining me today to mark this milestone in one soldier's and one Army family's life. To say that I greeted this day with mixed emotions is a bit of an understatement, but I recognize that my time has come. I am no longer able to physically perform as I once did, and it is appropriate for me to move out of the way and allow the next generation of leaders to step forward. I'm humble enough to know that I'm just one of 4,500 active duty colonels in the Army who roll along quite fine without me. There are many directions you can go in retirement remarks, but since people are what makes our Army what it is, and what I love about our Army, I'm going to choose to use my remarks today to celebrate the people I have served with and to commemorate those that we've lost along the way. And, in the age of Facebook, the term friend has lost some of its meaning. But Leanne and I are fortunate to have in the audience today some real friends. Friends we've made over a lifetime of service together. Many of you traveled significant distances to be with us here today, but distance isn't the barometer of how good a friend they are. We have many very good friends here in Washington, which is why we're going to choose to remain here in Washington. So I'm going to recognize some of those, and I'm doing this based upon RSVPs and my quick stand in the crowd. So if I miss somebody, please don't be offended. I'm going to start with my Penn State classmates, Lieutenant Colonel retired Ted Wheeler and his wife Linda, sitting out in the audience. You're here from Pennsylvania today. Ted was the leader of a commissioning class at Pennsylvania State University that is among its most distinguished. For 156 years, the Pennsylvania State University has provided officers to our Army, and there are few classes in that history that can match the accomplishments of the class of '86. I'm also thrilled that I made it through 25 years of background investigations without Ted, Pete, Vince, Fran, Kelly, O'Day, and a number of other people shedding too much light on my past as a student in college. I'd like to recognize Colonel retired Mike Barbero, also sitting in the audience. I was really lucky to be Mike Barbero's executive officer. A long time ago, far away in the Black Horse. Mike had a profound influence on my early career and has been a steadfast friend ever since. My service with him and the others in the Black Horse under Tommy White and John Abrams were the foundation upon which everything else I accomplished in the Army were built. More about that later. Also out in the audience is Colonel retired Ken Pope. He and his wife Mary have been our friends since he sponsored me into the Quarter Horse as we deployed to the First Gulf War. Ken is also one of my heroes, and he doesn't know this. I watched him create a cavalry troop literally out of scraps and leftovers, and lead them valorously into the teeth of an entrenched enemy. It's a great honor to be a combat veteran of the 1st Division and to count Ken and Mary as among our friends from that time. Lieutenant Colonel retired John Gifford and his wife, Kim, are good friends from our days together in the Big Red One. We served together again at West Point, at CGSC, at SAMS, the 1st Cavalry Division, and now we share this Old Town Alexandria together. They are honored founding members of the Inner Circle. You are tried and true friends, and we look forward to enjoying many years to come in your company. I cannot thank you enough for the help you provided as I face the transition I begin today. Not present, but worth mentioning, is Colonel Scott Hickenbottom. He was my wingman when we taught at West Point, and I cherish his friendship to this day. He's okay for a knuckle-dragging airborne infantryman in Aggie, and he is way cooler than his brother, the WWE superstar. Also notable in the audience today is my CGSC and SAMS classmate, Colonel Jim Nicholas, who came from Kansas today on a day trip to attend this ceremony. I'm absolutely stunned and humbled by that, Jim. Jim is one of the few people I've encountered in my career who is just plain brilliant. And he's also one of the finest officers I know. He and his wife, Shelley, literally taught me and I dance while we were together at Leavenworth. And sharing today with Jim has been an unexpected joy, and I look forward to returning the favor. And finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't, there's other people I'm going to talk about, but at this point, I'd just be remiss if I didn't recognize another person who's not here today, and that's my brother, Matt, who's commanding battalion in the difficult and largely unnoticed work in Iraq today. We couldn't swing a live video conference for this event. We're recording it for him nonetheless. And if everything goes as planned, we'll at least get to see it on a DVD, however long it takes the mail to get to him in Iraq. Overall, I'm a very lucky man. Lucky in life, lucky in love, lucky in war. I'm lucky to have had 25 great years of being exactly what I wanted to be at age 6, a soldier. And more specifically, an armor and cavalry officer. Throughout my service, any and all success I enjoyed was the harvest of labors of the men and women who served alongside me or under my command. I can never thank them enough for all they have done, for all they have taught, and all that they gave for their nation. I'm particularly touched today and greatly honored by the presence of soldiers who served with me in the 1st Battalion, 37th Armored Regiment, the Bandits of Friedberg, both in Germany and Iraq. Lieutenant Colonel John Stark was my S3. He sits in the audience. He's here today from Princeton, and he deploys to Afghanistan in a couple days. John and his cohort and his fellow in the XO, Matt Van Wagenen, accomplished some really amazing things and showed incredible valor during our campaign to reclaim South Central Ramadi from Al-Qaeda in Iraq. I will always cherish our time together, John, the support and friendship you continue to show. Also present from that time is Major J.P. Hart. John Paul, who had the thankless job that I also enjoyed in combat my first time around, of having been the plans guy. And despite that, John was a wonderful addition to the team in Ramadi and did tremendous work, and then followed it up almost immediately with another deployment, this time as a commander of multiple war companies in our sister brigade as they deployed a year after we returned in 2007. Thanks for being here, JP. Sergeant retired Darren Denson, his wife Sandra, are here. Denson, as I call him, was my tank driver and my Humvee gunner during the fight in Ramadi. He, more than any other single individual, bore the brunt of the dangers that I faced with him. And he's honorably discharged medically as a result of the service he provided. He literally put his life on the line for me. Day in, day out, and lives with the consequences. And I'm tremendously honored to have him here present. Zach McClintock, sitting over there trying to blend in the corner. Zach represents one of those fine soldiers and non-commissioned officers of the battalion who fearlessly did things that were hard and dirty and bloody day in, day out in Ramadi, whether it was in the duty description that they had at the time or not. And Zach, I'm honored to have you here today from West Virginia. In a career touched by stellar non-commissioned officers, there are two 19 Delta Cavalry Scouts that stand out and deserve special mention despite their absence today. I served with the late Command Sergeant Major Bob McCord when he was the first sergeant of Buccaneer Troop 11 Cavalry. Bob embodied everything a non-commissioned officer was supposed to be and much more. To this day, I remain in awe of his mastery of the intricacies of Bradley gunnery, his deft hand with soldiers, and his Renaissance man interests. He and Mike Barbera showed me firsthand how a commander and his senior non-commissioned officer could be the ultimate force multiplier. Second, Command Sergeant Major Mark Schindler, who was my battalion Command Sergeant Major and my battle buddy. Mark was my confidant, my directed telescope, and my senior tactical advisor in what Time magazine famously described as the most dangerous place in Iraq. We may not fit others' molds of what a Command Sergeant Major should do, but he defined mine, and our mission and men both benefited as a result. I would go to war again tomorrow, or any day, if I could have men like him, John Stark, J.P. Hart, Darren Denson, Zach McClintock, and a few more of those bandits by my side. I also consider it my sacred obligation to honor and remember the soldiers who have fallen alongside me, and thus I want to stop briefly to remember each of them on this occasion. And I start with Private First Class Jerry Westmoreland, Bravo Troop 111 ACR, who died in a training accident on Range 302 or 301 at Grafenbeer on 29 August 1988, in a night that even among all my nights remains one of the most horrible in memory. Moving on to my time in Iraq, Corporal Christopher D. Leon, 2nd Anglico, United States Marine Corps, died from enemy sniper fire on the 20th of June 2006 at his combat outpost. Sergeant Terry Lisk, Headquarters Company, 137 Armor, died in Ramadi on the 26th of June 2006, almost literally in my arms, killed by mortar fire. Sergeant Mark Vecchione, Bravo 137, killed by an IED in Ramadi on 18 July 2006 while his commander was on mid-tour leave. Aviation Ordnance Man 2nd Class Mark A. Lee, Naval Special Warfare Task Unit Ramadi, United States Navy sailor and SEAL, killed in Ramadi by small arms fire on 2 August 2006 while clearing a building with my soldiers. First Sergeant Aaron Jagger, Charlie Company 137, Specialist Ignacio N. Ramirez, and Specialist Shane Woods, all of Charlie 137, killed by a single IED blast on 9 August 2006. We recently celebrated the anniversary of our loss of them. Sergeant Marquise A. Quick, Fox Company, or Phantom Troop, 1st Cavalry, killed by hand grenade in Ramadi in 19 August 2006. Sergeant Nicholas Gibbs, Headquarters Company 137, killed by sniper fire on 6 December 2006 in Ramadi. Major Megan McClung, United States Marine Corps, Captain Travis Patrick Clinton, 1st Brigade, 1st Armored Division, and Specialist Vincent J. Primonti III, 23FA, all died in a single IED blast, also on the 6th of December in Ramadi, Iraq. Travis has recently been made famous because of the work he did. It's been publicized in a book on how to win in Anbar and in his role that he played in the Anbar awakening. Private First Class Paul Balin Jr., Bravo 126 Infantry, attached to me, killed by sniper fire in Ramadi on 15 December 2006. Specialist Andrew Dahl, Alpha 137, killed by IED in Hit, Iraq, December 19, 2006. Sergeant Eddie Schaefer, Bravo 136 Infantry, died of wounds at Fort Sam Houston, Texas on the 27th of December 2006 from wounds suffered in action in Ramadi. Specialist Alan McPeak and Private Matthew Zemer. Alan is from Alpha 16th Engineers, who was working with us, and Matt Zemer was from Headquarters Company 369 Armor, who was ripping with us, killed by friendly fire on the rooftop of one of my combat outposts on the 2nd of February 2007. And last but not least, Special Warfare Operator 2nd Class Ryan Job, Naval Special Warfare Task Unit Ramadi, United States Navy SEAL, who died of wounds suffered years previous in Phoenix, Arizona on the 24th of September 2009. These men and women gave their last full measure of devotion and will be in my thoughts and prayers and in my heart so long as I myself have breath. And I mention them today only to honor them. Not all sacrifice requires blood. Since the day of her birth, my daughter Rachel has been an Army brat, whether she wanted to be or not. She endured the frequent moves, the changing schools, the challenges of finding new friends time after time, and has done so, honestly, largely without complaint. After 9/11, the price she paid was increasingly significant, as her father was missing in action, so to speak, almost continuously for her middle school years and half of her high school years. And when he came home, he had some anger issues. Despite my absence, and to my wife and Leanne's eternal credit, she emerged unscathed and now stands boldly before her own future. I'd like to present her some flowers in recognition of my love and appreciation of her support. To my parents, it has been my exceptionally good fortune to be your child and to have been so lucky as to have you present for the major milestones in my life and military career. Indeed, you bookended my military career. You were present to commission me, and you're here to see me retire today. I love you both, and I'm delighted to share this day with you as well. The words fail to describe my debt and thanks to you. But I do have flowers for your mother. My final thanks go out to the most important person in my life, or as I like to remind her, the only relative I got to pick for myself.
Very good.
Leanne Roberts Tedesco is the love of my life and has been at my side as my best friend and my closest confidant throughout this whole journey. In good times and in bad, I've relied upon her insight, her unflagging support, and the comfort of her embrace, even when it came through Skype in the form of a phone call from a reminder. As a former Army Nurse Corps officer, she is a soldier in her own right. We joke that she was, quote, the worst, end quote, Army wife, because she didn't always do it the way others expected. But the truth is, we did it exactly the way that was right for us, and that's all that matters in the end. I look forward to everything that lies ahead in the next chapter, sweetheart, and you get flowers too. In closing, from the day I was commissioned, I had one overarching ambition, and people who've known me for a long time have heard me say this. And that was to be able to look myself in the mirror the day I shaved, or when I shaved, the day I retired, and know that I had done my duty with my honor and integrity intact. Mission accomplished. I have no regrets. Sure, I may have done a few things a bit differently knowing what I know now, but I sleep well at night, despite 10 years of war and 4 deployments. I know I have left the parts of the Army I have touched better for my service, and I'm proud to remove the pestilence of hundreds and hundreds of our nation's enemies from the face of this earth. Once again, thank you all for your patience with me this afternoon and for honoring my family with your presence here today. I'd like to thank the Lord God Almighty who's made me his least servant and the happiest man in the world to have this opportunity. May God bless the Army, our nation, the freedom-loving people everywhere. Aim low, stay low, and drive slow. Black horse, no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great. Bandits do not fail those with whom they serve.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the benediction given by Chaplain Kenneth Williams, to be followed by the playing and the singing of the Army songs.
I'd like to join with me in prayer. Almighty God, all I can say is, what a great soldier, gentleman, husband, father, and friend with whom you have blessed us. I thank you for using Colonel Tedesco
to lead soldiers to destroy the enemies of freedom and justice. Thank you for watching over his life and the legacy that he leaves behind. I commit him to your care in his retirement, trusting that his legacy will remain and grow and infect all those with whom he has touched. That he will continue to serve with distinction, influencing others in such a powerful way, living a life of great character that you have molded and shaped. Thank you for the Tedesco family, and I ask your blessing upon their lives. God bless our forces deployed around the world. Grant them safety and success in the fight for freedom and justice. And God bless America. Amen.
Amen.
The words of the Army song were not printed on your bulletin on purpose. You're supposed to know it.
As the Army goes rolling along, proud of all we have done, fighting till the war was won. As the Army goes rolling along, and it's high, high, hey, the Army's on its way. Shout out to get us out of strong. Wherever we go, you always know that the Army goes rolling along.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the ceremony. Thank you for attending. Please join us in congratulating Colonel Tedesco and his family in the receiving line.
Sorry.
You gotta steal the guy. That's his mother's.